All right, so hi everyone, really nice to see you. Thank you very much for coming and for your interest in my presentation. I hope that this is going to be helpful for you. I don't plan on speaking for too long in the beginning because I really would like to make this as interactive as possible. So I really want to leave time for the Q&A session so that you can ask me any kinds of questions that you have. Maybe I'm just going to ask if the people online can also hear me, just to make sure if someone can put a yes or speak up, just to know that everything's okay. Chat? Yes, okay, perfect. So welcome everyone also following us online. I'm really happy that you're here. So my name is Mercédesz, for those of you who don't know me, and I'm going to give a presentation about my internship in the European Parliament as a Schuman trainee. So let's see if this works. Perfect. Okay, so just to give you a brief idea about how I will structure my presentation, I will just tell you a few things about myself so that you get to know me a bit more. Then I will just really briefly talk about the European Parliament, how it works, the political and administrative tracks that exist within the Parliament, the Schuman traineeship itself, what is it? Then I will tell you a little bit more about the specific unit, the Directorate General for the Presidency, and specifically the protocol unit, which is where I work personally, so that you can also learn a bit more about this. Then MEP traineeships, which I'm going to explain you what are, EU job opportunities, and the Q&A session. All right. So the presentation about myself. So I was born in Hungary originally, but I grew up in Spain. And I'm currently a Schuman trainee in the European Parliament in Brussels at the DG for Presidency, the protocol unit. At the moment, I'm not going to explain to you much about this because it's going to be later on, but it's a really cool place where I work at the moment. So I graduated from eBay in 2022, last year, from the Master's in International Relations. And before coming to eBay, I studied at the University of Salamanca in Spain. And while I made 4 exchange programs during my studies, so I was only spending 2 years at my original university, because then I went to the US for a year, to Moscow, to Paris, and to Rome. So I've been traveling quite a lot around because yeah, cultures and international relations is really my passion. I really enjoy traveling. And just a fun fact about myself, I speak 9 languages. So this is the grasp about me. But now let's start talking about the reason why also you're here, and about something that might be more interesting for you to learn about. So just to ask you 2 questions before I start with this part. How many of you are from a member state in the European Union? 1, 2, 3. So the rest, I assume you're from somewhere else outside the EU. Okay. Hi, welcome. No, you're good. Nice, that's great. And how many of you have an interest in working for an EU institution? More or less, you? Yes? Okay, perfect, that's nice. That's very nice. Do you have a seat? Or you can also sit here if you want. No, you're good. Okay. Nice. So I see that some of you have an interest in working for EU institutions. I think it's a really good idea, and I hope that my presentation will encourage you even more to work for the EU institutions. And maybe the people following online, could you tell me if you are from a member state and if you have an interest in working for an EU institution? Just that I know, out of curiosity. If not, that's also okay. Okay, I would love to work for the EU. Nice, love that enthusiasm. Okay. Right. Nice. Okay. So the European Parliament and how it works. So probably you might already know about this because you might already had a class on EU institutions or just generally on international organizations. I remember having a class last year, which was really great on this topic. So I imagine you already know that within the European Union, we have the three main institutions, the European Commission, which is the one that has the monopoly to propose legislation within the EU. And then we have the two other institutions, which are the European Parliament and the Council of the European Union, which have the co-decision decision-making power. So these two institutions, whatever arrives from the Commission to them, they together have to accept that and vote on that together so that something becomes a legislation in the EU. So then, how does the European Parliament itself works? This is a chart that it's like very, very big and you don't have to know all this, just to give you a general idea, and maybe I'll come closer so that I can show you. So here, this is the structure of the European Parliament. It's a bit complicated and it takes a while to know everything, but actually it's not that complicated. So here you have the President of the European Parliament, of course, who is at the moment Roberta Metsola, yes, from Malta. She was an MEP from Malta, and she got elected last year because unfortunately the president that we had before, David Sassoli from Italy, he passed away. So he had to be replaced, and that's how Roberta Metsola got elected. So of course we have the president of the European Parliament and her office in this case. Then we have obviously the members of the European Parliament, who are how many? Does any of you know how many members of the parliament there are? Just a guess. 100, 200, 705. Really good. 705 after the exit of the UK from the European Union, it got reduced to 705. Before it used to be 750 something. Now it's 705. And so these representatives in the European Parliament, they are put in different political groups. So we have the EPP, which is the European People's Party, the SND, Social Democrats, the Renew, Greens, ID, ECR, 7 in total. So these are the MEPs, the members of the European Parliament, divided by groups. And then we have some political bodies in the European Parliament, which is, for example, the Conference of the Presidents, the Parliament's Bureau of the Quaestors. These are all, and the committees, really important, the committees on different kind of topics, all the topics that the European Parliament deals with, which are, again, political positions. So MEPs who are in the Parliament, they get to these positions and they work there. But then we have the Parliament Secretariat. And if this picture was a bit bigger, you could see that this actually continues, it would continue up until here. Because these are all different offices that form part of the Secretariat, which is the permanent body of the institution. So there is all this is political, and it depends on how people vote during the European elections. This never changes. The people who work here, they always stay in the same place and they are permanently there supporting the work of the parliament. So here we have different directorates, and these are the DGs. That it's like a jargon and everyone talks about DGs in Brussels. And many times when we go there, we're like, well, what are DGs? So directorate generals are offices which do different kinds of jobs. So for example, you have the Directorate General for Innovation and Central Services, the one for relations with the political group, the one for legal services, the Directorate General for Presidency, which deals with everything that has to do with the top level presidency of the institution, and which is where I work. And then for Directorate General for Internal Policies of the European Union, for external policies of the European Union. And this would go on and on and on until 13 DGs. And then we have the secretariats of the political groups. So actually, I would rather put this one here. And so then we would have all the political and then the non-political section. So this is just to give you a brief idea, okay? And if I go to the next slide, I think here, yes, I already have the division then of the political and the administrative track. And I think this is really important because actually when I started working in the parliament, I didn't really know about this difference. What does it mean to be working for like the political section of the parliament and for the secretariat, which is like the permanent body. So the political bodies in the parliament, as I mentioned, everyone working for the political side is elected democratically every 5 years by the Europeans, which means that these representatives change all the time. They never know whether they're going to be elected again or not. It all depends on the will of the people and who they vote for. However, they are the ones who have the decision-making power, and this is very important. So all the representatives that form part of the political body, they change all the time, every 5 years, and also the people who work for them. So it's not only the 705 members of the parliament who work here, but also all their assistants, it's usually assistants and people in their environment. And they are the ones having the decision-making power, specifically the members of the European Parliament, those people who you always see in the chamber, in the plenary sessions, voting. They are specifically the ones. And of course, in order to be able to vote there, they need assistance and they need people working for them to deal with all that information because it's actually a lot of work. So yeah, this is for the political bodies. And then what is the secretariat? As I mentioned before, also, it's the permanent administrative body of the institution, which remains unchanged despite the fact that this representative gets elected or not. So this always remains the same regardless of what happens. So what does it do then? It has a supportive function and it doesn't have a decision-making power. So everyone working for the secretariat is doing an administrative work, helping the work of the parliament, but this is not political. So if you work for the secretariat and for all these DGs that I showed you, your job is really administrative, right? So you know what's going on in the parliament and you help with everything and you are really, of course, working there, but you don't have the decision-making power, right? So this is what I wanted to emphasize. Because then in terms of traineeships, it also changes. So for the political side, we have the MEP traineeships. And so then what are the Schuman traineeships? Well, the ones in the secretariat. So if you are a Schuman trainee, you will always have this kind of supportive job within the parliament and not the political one. And this is something important to know because many people might think that, oh yes, I'm a Schuman trainee, so I'm going to change how Europe works and the world, which is really nice. And that's also my goal. But once you get there, you see that it's really, really different, right? And especially the difference between these two traineeships, it's quite big. So I'm going to explain you now more in detail what kind of things you can do with both of them. So let's start then with the Schuman traineeship, okay? Because I'm also a Schuman trainee, and I think this is a really good opportunity for all of you who are here. So what is the Schuman traineeship? This is what the official webpage of the Schuman traineeship says, that the goal of the Schuman traineeship is to contribute to EU citizens' European education and vocational training and to provide an insight into the work of the European Parliament. So very general. So this is a 5-month paid internship, which is really nice because nowadays, unfortunately, there are still traineeships which are unpaid. terrible, should be banned forever. But this is paid. There are 2 selection rounds per year. The one goes from October, February, which is the one that I'm doing now. And then there is another one from March to July. And recently they just changed the application procedures, because before the commission, the council, and the parliament would have different application deadlines, but now they synchronized it. So finally they made it easier. So I think for the October, February one, now you have to apply in May, and for the other one in December or something like that. But they always update their webpage, so you can always check it there. What is cool is that no prior work experience is required, and it's also open for non-EU citizens. Although I have to say that this is much more limited. There are much more chances that you're going to be accepted if you are an EU citizen, but I know some friends who are not EU citizens and they are still doing a Schuman traineeship, so it's not impossible. Something that you have to be aware of is that the parliament and the institutions in general, they do use quotas, which can be something good or something bad, depending on the situation, meaning that they have a limited number allocated for non-EU citizens, and then for people coming from different member states, so that they avoid having tons of Germans and Italians, and they can have some Maltese and Hungarians, for example, too. And then there are, as I mentioned, 13 DGs to choose from. So this is actually kind of cool, because it covers a really wide range of, let's say, interest. So if you studied law before, this is a really good opportunity, because there are many positions specifically open for lawyers, such as linguist lawyers, which I find really interesting and I never heard of before. It's like being a linguist and a lawyer at the same time. It's really cool. And you can do it as a Schuman trainee, or if you're interested more in like the internal policies of the EU, you can do it in the INLO, DG INLO. If you feel like more interested about foreign relations, you can do it in DG Expo, which is the external policies. Or yeah, if you want to work with the president, then you can apply for the cabinet of the president, which is also cool, or the presidency. So yeah, you have a great variety actually. So you have 13 DGs, which are going to be 14 actually, because my unit is going to become the next DG, interestingly. So you will have 14 DGs. All right, nice. So just to explain to you a little bit about one of the DGs. So like to know a little bit what is going on, right? So what can you do there? So as I mentioned, I work for the DG for Presidency and specifically the protocol unit. So my next question to you would be, has any of you ever heard of protocol and what protocol does? Yes, good, good, good. And if you would have to maybe tell in a few words what you know about protocol, how would you define it? Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. Really good. Yes. Excellent. Yes. Anything else to add, maybe? Yes. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Very good. That's excellent. Because me myself, I had no idea about protocol before, and when I first read the web page, the application page, I was like, wow, this is so cool. This is what I want to do, because actually it has a lot to do with international relations, and And I really liked it the first moment I read it. So this was actually my first option when I applied. So I was very lucky and fortunate that I could get into my first option. So yeah, it's basically what you guys told to me, explained to me. So here you have some pictures of the European Parliament in Strasbourg, because this is also a small technical detail about the European Parliament, that as you might know, the parliament has two seats, one in Brussels and one in Strasbourg. And this has been like an ongoing debate for years and years, because this is established in the treaties. Back then, when the treaties were written, the French really wanted to have more power. And they decided that they would have at least one plenary session per month in Strasbourg. Actually, sorry, it's at least 12 sessions in Strasbourg. So we have 2 sessions in October because there is no session in August. So when there is a plenary session, everyone from Brussels, almost everyone, travels to Strasbourg because the work is needed there. So yes, it's a waste of time, of money, of resources, but it is how it is. And there's been an ongoing debate about changing this, but of course, to change the treaties, you would need unanimous support from each member state, and the French never gonna vote for that. So it's not going to change anytime soon, I feel. And so, yeah, we work both in Strasbourg and in Brussels, but mainly in Brussels. So when there is no plenary, we are in Brussels, and also there are some mini plenaries happening in Strasbourg. So the plenaries are basically where the MEPs vote for directives and regulations and all those kind of things. So usually they vote in Strasbourg, but sometimes they vote in Brussels during the mini plenaries. So these pictures are taken in Strasbourg, and it's really cool because, so here you can see my boss. I'm going to show you. Well, 2 bosses of mine, because obviously she's the boss, Roberta Metsola, but she's my boss. She's Carmen Castillo del Carpio. She's actually Spanish. She's from Spain. And she's the chief of protocol. So that's why she's always the one going with the VIPs, you know, the really important people. So here it's Macron. Here it's I think the Swedish Prime Minister, or Giorgia Meloni. And I've been there during both of these visits and a couple other visits where prime ministers came. And it's really cool because we get to see them pass by. This is the protocol entrance. So as you can see, there's like a red carpet, which we also have in Brussels. It's really cool. And these guys are also really interesting. They are the ushers. So you can also be an usher trainee if you're interested. They are the ones really making sure that during these visits, everything goes smoothly. And they have to dress like this because it's like really to show respect to the people who come in. So this is also something really cool. He's a really cool guy. I know him. And he's the personal usher of Roberta Metsola. And she's also really cool, by the way. I also know her. And so, yeah, here is Carmen, my boss. Here, this is Sebastian. He's a colleague of mine. She's working in the cabinet of Roberta Metsola. She's always around. She's Christina. And then, yeah, there's Giorgia Meloni, which was also really cool when she came. And that was in Brussels. These 2 are in Strasbourg. So, yeah, this is what happens many times for protocol. So we are the ones who accompany these people, as you also mentioned, Olga. So these people, when they arrive, there has to be someone there to receive them and then accompany them to the place where they have to go. So this is, let's say, the main thing that we do, the reception of high-level political visitors in the EP, which can be delegations. So there can be like a whole group coming, or also just one minister or one politician. It depends. Oh, yes. Yes, I knew some of you would ask this at some point. So there we go. Yes, indeed, Eva Kaili, who was one of the vice presidents, because we have several vice presidents, 14 in total. Yes, she got arrested. She's in jail now in Belgium. it's a huge scandal. I don't know if the other here, you also heard of the news, right? So yeah, it's quite bad. Last week we elected during the plenary the new vice president, whose name is Marc Angel, I think. He's from Luxembourg. So yeah, corruption exists, and it exists also within the parliament, and it's sad. But well, what Roberta Metsola said is that she really wants to work on this and make the parliament more transparent and more make people more accountable. Let's see how it goes. But yeah, the vice president is in jail, and some other MEPs as well, especially from the SND group, from the Italians. Which is sad because it's terrible for the credibility of the EU in general and of the parliament, but well, I guess we have to learn from the mistakes. So yeah, what I was gonna say, we also organize interparliamentary visits, ceremonies, awards, those kind of things. So for example, not last week, but the week before, the beginning of January, there was, for example, a commemorative not celebration, but like a ceremony for the 1-year death anniversary of David Sassoli, the former president of the European Parliament. And that was organized both in the parliament and in a church outside. There was like a mass, which we had to organize from the parliament in that church. So that was also kind of cool. So yeah, we also coordinate with the cabinet of the president, which is very nice because we get to work with the president, and that's like really, really nice. We can learn a lot. And something interesting about protocol is also that we deal with the incoming and outgoing visa applications for the missions that the MEPs go onto, and also of the delegations who come in. So we also go to embassies and consulates to get the visas done, and it's also cool because we always take the official cars and we just drive around the city to the embassies and the consulates, and it's very cool. Yeah, so that's mainly for the protocol and the job that I also do at the moment. But then I also wanted to talk to you a little bit about the MEP traineeships, which is actually also very cool. And it's something that I'm going to be doing from March on, because as you've seen, the Schuman traineeships are only for 5 months. So after your 5-month traineeship is over, they cannot guarantee that you can stay. You can try. There are many options. I'm going to also talk to you about the different options, but it's not guaranteed. So you're really on your own, and you have to find your way to stay if you want to stay, or to look for something else. But something that I don't want to forget to tell you is that you should always keep in mind that once you get into one of these institutions, whether it's the parliament, the council, or the commission, it's always easier to stay once you're in, as if you were to apply from the outside. So once you're in, once you get a traineeship, once you get like to work there somehow, you should take the opportunity to make as many contacts as you can and to find as many opportunities inside, even if it's maybe like not your dream position, but just to take the opportunity, because it's always easier after to find maybe your dream position within the institution, because it's always easier to stay. So this is something that I did as well myself. So I came as a Schuman trainee. My contract is going to end at the end of February. So after the 1st of March, I applied for another position and I got it. So from the 1st of March, I'm going to be working with a Hungarian MEP as an assistant. And this means that I'm going to be doing much more political work, which I kind of was missing, or that I'm kind of missing at the moment as a Schuman trainee. So yeah, and this is going to be for another 5 months. So I get to stay in the parliament in a different position. And it's going to be a whole different experience because, as I mentioned, as a Schuman trainee, your work is very administrative. But here, when you work with a politician, obviously this has to be political. Something really cool is that if you work with an MEP, such as Guy Verhofstadt, you don't have to be affiliate of the party that this MEP is coming from. So if you are not really into partisan politics, it's totally fine. You as an assistant, you're not supposed to be campaigning for this person. Unless you're contracted to do the campaign, of course. But as an assistant, your task is to really assist the job of the MEP in the parliament, and not to you personally engage in like any political activity, if that makes sense. Of course you can, but it's not mandatory. So imagine, for example, I don't know, the case of Hungary. I'm sure you've learned of Hungary and the rule of law issues and everything that's going on. So if I wanted to work for an MEP from the Fidesz party, which is now in government, I could still do it even if I wasn't part of the Fidesz party in Hungary, and if I didn't identify myself with their views. Of course, at the end, I would still work for them, and I will feel bad to work for them, but many people does it. I know many people who accepted jobs with, for example, the Italian ID or ECR, which is like the Italian far right. They accepted jobs there, and they are like full liberals, and like they don't identify at all with conservative views, let's say, but they still accepted the job just to see, because even if you don't agree with everything that's going on, and even if you don't agree with everything that the MEP is doing, it's still an experience. And this is also something important to keep in mind, that even if you don't feel like this is your dream position or the top where you want to go, or the top that you want to reach, you're still going to learn. You're still going to learn, and that's what is the most important, I think, with a traineeship. So yeah, Guy Verhofstadt, or you have Irache Garcia, for example, who is the president of the SND group, the political group, and she's from Spain. She's also really cool. Or just to make things a bit more funny or interesting, you could even work with Puigdemont, because he's also an MEP in the parliament. I see him all the time. He's always in the canteen, walking around. I wanted to take a picture with him, but then I was like, no, it's fine. I'm just gonna leave him alone, but I could, because he's an MEP. He's always there. So you could potentially even work with Puigdemont if you wanted to. No one's gonna stop you. And then this series is really cool. I highly recommend it to you. I don't know if any of you have seen this. Maybe I see someone nodding there. Maybe you? Yes, you've seen it. Yeah, it's really cool, isn't it? I love it. I've seen the first season, and it's like so realistic. Like really, all my MEP trainee friends and assistants, they tell me like it's really like they really did a good job. It basically demonstrates the life of an MEP trainee who arrives to the parliament as a new trainee, and he works with this crazy French MEP, and then all the love affairs that he has. And yeah, because that's also a big part of being in the parliament, like all the gossip that's going on. If the walls could talk. Okay, I'm gonna stop. But it's part of the experience, and it's true, and no one tells you about this. It's really how it is. So if you are curious, feel free to watch this series. It's really funny, and it really shows you how the job of MEP training is, if you're interested. Okay. All right, so towards the end, I don't want to speak for too long, and it's been already too long. So just to summarize it a little bit, and to talk to you a bit more about other EU job opportunities, because I've been focusing a lot on the European Parliament. But of course, for example, if you want to go to Brussels, which I highly recommend to you, because it's a really cool city, it's a really good opportunity to, I think, to start also your career. As a recent graduate from eBay, there are obviously much more opportunities than being in the parliament and also in the EU institutions. So what kind of things can you do? So I don't know if you've heard of the EPSO competitions. The EPSO competitions are really the exams that you need if you want to stay, let's say, permanently in the institutions. So whether you want to work for the commission, the council, or the parliament, there are these competitions, exams, which are quite tough. Many people complain about them because they are really hard. They usually have verbal reasoning part where you have to like read texts and answer to questions, numerical reasoning where you have to do some calculations, abstract reasoning, and then there are some interviews. You also have to speak in different languages. Yeah, this is something also curious and interesting, and that I wanted to mention, that they usually ask for either English or French plus something else. But from my experience, really, when they say English or French, it's really English and French. So you can get accepted, obviously, if you don't speak French, but after a while, it's really going to be a handicap if you don't speak French in Brussels and in these institutions. It's not impossible, and it really depends on the institution. But for the parliament, for example, French, it's really useful. So if you speak it already, good. If you don't, it's good if you start, because it's really helpful. And for me, I feel like I speak more French during my work than English. This also depends on the DGs, and because let's say the language of diplomacy, it's still really more French. It makes sense that we speak more French because other colleagues of mine in other DGs, they say that they speak more English. But anyways, there are still, for example, people in the parliament who don't speak English and only French. And then what are you going to do with them? Because if you have a task and you have to deliver and you have to call someone who only speaks French, you don't, it's going to be difficult. So it's not impossible, but it's better if you do. So the EPSO competitions, as I mentioned, they are these really big exams that they always publish online where you can apply. The thing is, several thousands people apply each year, and they accept like, I don't know, 0.5, 1%. It's really tough to get in, and you really have to prepare these exams. There are books online, there are web pages online where you can train yourself, and it's really helpful, and it's not impossible. So I don't want to scare you, but it's also not too easy. The benefits, although, are that once you get an EPSO competition and once you pass it, you have a job for life. So if you want to work for these institutions forever, you do an EPSO competition and no one can kick you out, no matter what you do, unless you do like something crazy, like, I don't know, you kill somebody, or yeah, or you or you make deals with the wrong guys in Qatar and you accept I don't know, 600,000 euros in cash. Then some things could happen, but if you don't do anything like this, they can kick you out. So it's really a comfortable job, I would say. They pay well. And when you apply to these competitions, you have different levels. So you can apply for, let's say, an administrator 5 position or 6, 7. And the higher the position you apply for and the higher the exam you pass, the more your salary is. You can also go up by experience, but it's also an option that if you are really good and you know what you're doing, you apply directly to a high position, you get into a high paying salary job, which is really cool, and you can stay there forever, really. So this is the benefit. And if you do this EPSO competition, don't forget, you always work for the secretariat, as I mentioned. So always for the supportive body, because everything political changes. So it can be that you can still work, let's say, for 10, 20, 15 years in the same position because your MEP gets elected all the time, and it's fine then. It can be, but many times, many people don't get elected, only for 1 term. And then if they don't get elected, they cannot be in the parliament. So EPSO competition is always for a job in the secretariat, okay? And this EPSO competition is both, it's for the commission council and the parliament, for the three of them. And all the other agencies, for example, the EEAS, the External Action Service, which is also really cool. You can also do an internship there, which I'm going to mention now too. You also do the EPSO competition. So it's like all managed, like it's central management, right? So you apply for them and then you get to choose where you go. It is also possible that, for example, you work for the parliament for 6 years, let's say, and then you switch to the commission. And then you stay 2 years in the commission and then you switch to the council. Then you switch to an agency, to the Council of the Regions. You have this opportunity, and it's actually really nice as well. You can do this. And now there is even a mandatory factor, which is that after every 6 years, that's why I mentioned 6 years, you have to change. Not necessarily between institutions, but within the institution, you have to change after 6 years. So that you don't stay in the same place all the time, but you still work for the institutions for life. It's just that you mix up a little bit, which is, I think, also cool. But as I mentioned, these competitions are quite tough because the benefits are really good. And also once you work for these institutions, you get really nice benefits. If you have family, kids, they can go to European schools. It's very nice benefits. But you also have this other possibility, which is the CAST. So you can become a contract agent. So what is this? This is an exam similar to the EPSO competition, but it's a bit easier because there is less people applying. And the reason for that is that you have to be called by a head of unit. So this is the tricky part of it, because if you are not called by someone in working for the institution, you cannot sit these tests. But this is a good opportunity if, for example, you do a traineeship, you apply for a traineeship, and then if you want to stay, you have the opportunity to do this CAST. If you talk to your boss, your head of unit, and say, look, I would like to stay in the parliament, is there a chance for me to be called for the CAST? And your head of unit can say yes or no, but you try. And if you are lucky, and if your head of unit says, yes, you did a really good job during your internship, and we would like you to stay, then you can do this test. And as a contract agent, you can, let's hope it doesn't switches off. Let's see. As a contract agent, you can stay in the parliament for 6 years. So you can work there for 6 years, which is also really nice. It's a nice long stay. And then you also have if you are a Schuman trainee, you also have this thing called the Schuman Traineeship Development Program. So this means basically that there is an exam which they do only for the Schuman trainees. So at this moment, I think we're like 250 Schuman trainees, which compared to the Blue Book trainees, who are the ones in the commission, is quite small because the Blue Books are like 1,200. We are only 250 in the parliament, more or less. They do this exam specifically for the trainees. And so you can sit this test. And if you do well, if you're within the 25 best, let's say, trainees, then you go to a list. And from that list, the different units, they can recruit trainees. This, again, it's not guaranteed, but it's an option. And yeah, if you are lucky and if you do the test well, this could also be an opportunity for you to stay after your traineeship. And then, yes, there's the Blue Book traineeship, which is, as I mentioned, it's for the commission. It's just called like this. Like the thing that it's called Blue Book is because before, back then, without digitalization, they used to have blue books where they would write the name of the trainees, like by pen in a blue book. So that's why they kept the name Blue Book traineeship. So this is for the commission. Again, the application process is really similar to the one as to the Schuman traineeship. It's like they have the web page, you can apply there. And once you're in, if you want to stay here, instead of the development program, you have the JPP, which is the junior junior program for something, I don't know. So this actually is different from the one that we have in the parliament, because with the GPP, what you can do is you can stay there for 2 years, and every 6 months, if I'm not mistaken, you change between units. So this is also really nice to like have different to like experience different kinds of jobs and tasks within the commission. So you can go around and see what you like and what you don't like. So it's a really good opportunity. Then also for the EU Council, they don't have a name. It's just EU Council traineeships. Here, the good thing about the council is that the least people apply here. So first it's the commission, many people want to go there. Then it's the parliament, also many people want to go there, but the places are much limited in the parliament. And then the council, no one really wants to go there. But it's also really nice. I was actually hesitant between the council and the parliament. It's very nice, and it's also really good opportunity. So you can also do internships there. And here it's actually more like you meet the prime ministers, because they go there for the summits and these kind of things. And Charles Michel is there if you like him. So it's very, very interesting. And then in general in Brussels, you know that you also have the NATO. The NATO headquarters is there, so you can also try to get into NATO. You have tons of NGOs, lobbies, consultancy, think tanks. So really, okay, I'm almost done. You can. And the remote. Oh, the remote. Okay, which one? Because there are 3. Who's the part? Okay, I'm just going. Okay, just try all of them. Oh, okay, got it. Okay, good. Okay. Yes, and you even have like these news portals and broadcasting channels, which are so cool. For example, Politico. I don't know if you know about Politico. Yeah, it's a really good source. And they have this thing called the Brussels Playbook. It's really useful if you don't know about it. Every morning they publish what's going on in Brussels. I think they also have a Washington Playbook, which is about DC. And it's so cool because every morning when I take the bus from my place to the parliament, it's like 10 minutes ride, and I could even walk. But I prefer to take the bus because then I have 10 minutes to read the news. And these ones, they really summarize what's going on that day in Brussels, what's happening, the agenda, the latest news. And it's really helpful if you want to be updated about what's going on. It's really nice. The Politico's Brussels Playbook. So yeah, these are really all good opportunities. I really encourage you to try some of them. I would like to thank you for your attention. I talked for too long, I'm sorry. But I'm really happy to answer all your questions, and also feel free to add me whatever you want. I'm reachable on all these platforms, and very happy to answer to more questions if you have, or if you would just like to get in touch, or if you end up coming to Brussels to grab a coffee, of course, always. Yeah, just feel free to reach out. So thank you.